everybody. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Wendy.
We are Elevation Games, and today we are reviewing Fall of the Mountain King from Burnt Island Games. This was another one of our Gen Con pickups. It is a prequel to the few years old now in the Hall of the Mountain King, also from Burnt Island Games. In that game, you are playing a group of trolls going back into a mountain to reclaim your ancestral home after you were kicked out generations before by a bunch of unruly gnomes. In this game, you are actually fighting that invasion. You are playing as the trolls, defending your home, fighting off gnomes for as long as you can, and earning honor for the different troll clans to decide who will ultimately lead the trolls after you are kicked out of the mountain. So, it's a really interesting game. It's extremely heavyweight, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very rules dense. I had to read the instruction book a couple of times to get confident enough for us to play it on stream. But it's also fun and has some really interesting mechanics in it that are unique that I haven't really seen done elsewhere. So, let's dig into it.
Let's dig in. So one thing about this game is that it's for 1 to 5 players. We've only played it at a 2-player level.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's really fun at a 2-player level. I'll say that. So, but it's one that I feel like the more players that you play with, the more competitive and fun it will be, because with just the two of us, when you have a board this big, it's hard to... all of our stuff is focused on just like one little corner of the board. I feel like with more players on here, you would be able to see a lot more of the board being used, and a lot of your cards that have actions where you are entering into a cavern that is occupied by someone. I feel like those would have a lot more weight if you had more players that you were playing, because it was easy for us to very directly impact each other or to kind of make an effort to avoid each other on the board.
Yeah, I agree. I think with more players, you definitely would bump up against each other more often.
Yeah.
Which is probably the sweet spot for this game. So this is a sort of genre, I guess, that's becoming more and more popular these days. I think they're calling it co-op competitive. Basically, you are ultimately competing, but you're also working together on things at different times, right? So,
right.
And when you are competing in this, you're competing very indirectly. It's very much like a Euro in that way, where you are competing with each other, but you're not, stabbing each other in the back constantly.
That's right. And there is an axe that we pass back and forth, and we don't use the axe on each other at all.
The first player token in this, a nice first player token, and also actually useful in this case.
Or a hammer, not an axe. Now that I look at it,
it is a hammer. Overview of this game. What you are doing, you are placing trolls. Great components, by the way. Love these little troll guys. Also,
and they're wooden, which is very nice.
Yes, and hot pink trolls can't go wrong. So you are placing these guys down to control different caverns on this big, colorful board here. I should point out the board is actually 2-sided.
Yeah.
One side is for, I believe, 1 to 3 players, and then the other side is for 4 and 5 players. So the other side is larger and has more spaces on it. So you are placing your trolls around the board here, and attempting to control different caverns, surround the important great halls, which you can see are marked by these tokens here. Those are worth points at the end of the game if you control the caverns around them, and earning influence with the various troll clans. You've got a board here with all the different clans represented. Each section of the map is color coded with the symbol of the different clans, and so by controlling more of a specific clan's territory, you get more votes with them, and those are worth points at the end of the game.
That's right.
The way you control a cavern is simply by having more of your trolls than any other token in that cavern. So if I have 3 pink trolls in one cavern and Wendy has 2 green trolls, I am in control of that cavern at that point. If we both have 3 trolls in there, no one is in control of that cavern. You also have these little gnome tokens that are constantly invading. It's a little bit pandemic-like in that way. Every turn, you're going to flip over cards. They're going to tell you whether gnomes are going to invade. More and more gnomes invade every turn. The game is played over a series of 3 waves of invasions from the gnomes.
Right.
And basically, you don't know. So these are double-sided. You got the little gnome head on one side, and then a number, either 1, 2, or 3 on the other. Obviously, you don't know what's on the reverse side of this, so you're sort of guessing how many trolls do I want to move into that cavern to see if I can beat that gnome. When you move trolls into a cavern with a gnome, you got to flip it over. If you have that many trolls or more than the total numbers on all gnome tokens in that cavern, you win. Those gnomes are killed. They're taken off the board, and you score some points. It's pretty straightforward when you lay it out like that. Another thing that you're doing is trying to earn influence and attract different troll champions. They come on these really excellently designed cards here. The art in this is really nice. It's extremely colorful. And these, I mean, the art of the trolls themselves is great, but I love this design. These designs on the back, they're really killer.
Yes, and it makes it very easy for you to tell which wave you're in. So you've got 0, a 1, and a 2, and then a 3. So there's no question about who's supposed to be out there you're trying to get influence with. And then also, I assume that they get better, like they build on the waves.
Yeah, you've got your starters that are 0. Everybody gets one of these to start with. They're pretty basic, and then in waves 1 and 2, you're randomly drawing some of these guys. They have much more interesting, more powerful abilities, and then in wave 3, what really changes here is a lot of these guys are about just scoring victory points because it's the last wave. So
Sure.
Obviously, at the end of it, you're just scoring the game. So these guys are really about moving your trolls around, giving you extra power to deal with gnomes, to peek and see what the gnomes are doing.
Right.
Push and pull your adversaries or your own pieces around the board, stuff like that. It's pretty neat. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of different powers on here, and you've got you've got a track on here that shows the different influence numbers, and so in each wave you're basically earning a certain amount of influence, and you put one of your markers on this track. Whoever is the highest at the end of the wave gets to take that champion. You get to use their power from that point on. Plus, you score a certain number of votes with whatever clan they're from.
Sure.
So,
and that's another place where I feel like having more players, because you get 1 per player plus 1.
mm-hmm.
So as we're playing with the 2 of us, obviously there's going to be 3 cards on there, and the way that we were playing it, the first one to bid on a card usually would get it. You would know. Like, you were guaranteed to get one of them. And then whichever one was like deemed best, I guess, would be the one that we would kind of fight over trying to get on. But because of the way that the bidding works, if you are the first, you have a much higher likelihood to score it
Yeah.
than the other player. If we were playing with 3, 4, or 5 players, then not only would you have more variety of those out there, but for that one that everybody is looking at, it would be, I feel like, a little bit more competitive. It wouldn't be more of a soft guarantee that the first person to bid for them would get that.
Yeah.
You would have to focus your attention a lot more with more players on there.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. This is another place where just it works at 2, but it's less competitive.
Yeah, this game is like super fun with 2. Like, I don't want to take away from that fact.
Sure.
I do think it would be more fun with more players.
Yeah. So, one of the neatest things about this game, I think, is the way you take your actions.
That's brilliant.
So you start out with a little it's a little mini tableau builder. You do this at the start of every wave. You draw these ancestry cards, 4 of them. You pick one, and then you place it down, and you always have to cover up an existing tile with one of the tiles from this. And you're building a 6x6 grid with these ancestry cards, and these are what tell you what actions you can do in a game. So, for instance, you can take an action with these green hammers here to move. That's your advance action. That lets you move trolls from one cavern to another. You can deploy trolls with the shield action here. That lets you put more trolls on the board. The white claw symbol here lets you gain influence. That's how you get the troll champions.
Right.
Is putting influence on their cards. And then you've got the little gnome symbol here. And the gnome symbol lets you peek at these gnome tokens to see what their number is, so that you know how many trolls you need to put in there to beat them. It also lets you peek at the cards to see where they're going to invade next. And then, depending on how many gnome actions you just took, you get to move a marker around this little wheel here, and whatever you land on, that's the action you take based on how many spaces you moved. So, if I moved 1, 2, 3, 4 onto this white claw here, that's going to let me get 4 influence on one of the champion cards. You have to be careful with the gnome actions, though, because if you ever move across this tripwire here, you're going to trigger a mid-turn invasion. Gnomes will come in wherever this little swarm token is placed, and any trolls that they kill during that mid-turn invasion are not worth any points. That's another way you can earn points, of course, is when the gnomes do invade. If they kill off some of your trolls, you'll get points for every troll that falls fighting a gnome. So, but this tableau builder is really neat. It really determines what actions you can take on any turn, and it grows. You keep adding to this every wave, so that you start out with only a handful of options in the first wave. And then by the time you get to the final wave, you've got a lot more to work with. It's a really, really neat concept, I think.
It is. And it also contributes to the replayability of this game. I feel like I'm a broken record, because replayability is so important to me if we're going to devote space on our game shelves and put time into a game. I want to make sure that it's not something that we just play once or twice and then it's out the door. So because your player mat is going to be different every single time based on just the luck of the draw and the luck of the draft as you're going through with the other players, I think it really contributes to this game being one that you can play time and time and time again, and it's going to be different every time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, there's a lot. Yes, I would say the replayability on this one is very high. Um, so I mean, I enjoyed the game that we played of this.
Same.
Game and a quarter. We did start, but then we were both getting a little sick, so we cut the first game short. um, I will say negatives, I suppose here. I've talked a lot here explaining how this game works. This is a very basic, watered down explanation.
Yeah.
There are a lot more rules than what we just covered right now.
And there's not a player guide, just like a little help card for the players to remember what the icons on your player board are for, or like how the turn order goes. Like, you get a little bit of explanation on this guy, but you don't get nearly as much as you need to be able to follow the game, because it is really rules heavy, and there's a lot of requirements in here. So I had to keep asking Jeremy, even as we were a few rounds in, now what does this do again, or why would I do this again? Just because it can be a little confusing, because yeah, there are a lot of rules that go into this.
And there some of them, not all of them. Some of them are also pretty unintuitive, to be honest.
Sure.
The way that the trolls move around the board, I understand. Having played it now, why they made the decision they did. So you don't take one troll and move it a certain number of spaces. Instead, you pick a cavern that's adjacent to any of your trolls and move a number of trolls into that cavern. So they almost move like liquid, kind of spreading across the board.
Yeah.
Which is a neat concept. It makes for interesting gameplay situations, and especially with more players, that's how you rub up against each other. But that's not intuitive at all. That is not how you would expect to move pieces around, and so it just makes it that much harder to keep that kind of stuff in your head when you're trying to keep track of so many different rules. So I just want to give that caveat up front that it is an extremely rules heavy game, and you're going to need to find the right people who are willing to put up with that to play this.
Sure.
For sure.
One thing that I really, really, really appreciate about this game, and it's something that we both care about, is when you look at the board, it's very bright, it's very colorful. Like, you've got a richness in these colors that kind of guide you through the board or through the different clans that are on the board. For folks that don't see color as clearly as we do, that can be a challenge. Like, no matter how rich those colors are, there are going to be people that are going to be at a disadvantage there. So they did add on these very clear icons onto every single one of the caverns, that even if you can't see that this is a yellow cavern, you can see that there's a hammer on it. And they're not small, because a lot of times, like, if you think about, like, Ticket to Ride has those too, but they're tiny. So if you can't see color and your vision's not great, then it doesn't help you out as much as it could. But on all of these, it's nice and big. All of the icons are very different, so you're not looking at, well, this is a circle with an X in it and this is a circle with a line through it. They're all very unique, and on the board they're sized very big. So for us, we have people in our family that we like to play games with that can't see color and that don't have the strong vision that's required to play a lot of these, like, very color heavy games, or like things with small icons. And so this, for those family members, it would definitely make it a lot easier for them to be able to play this game without having to ask, like, what color is this or what clan is this. They can see that very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And they give you a lot of different colored tokens.
That's right.
Out of the box that are very different colored. So
They are.
while I don't think that my dad, for instance, who is very colorblind, would necessarily be able to tell you accurately what all these little guys are colored. He would almost certainly be able to pick one that he could distinguish enough to keep up with his own.
That's right.
Little dudes.
Because some of them, like the pink one that Jeremy was just holding, they're very bright and very, very colorful. And then there's some that are a little lighter. So you've got like a really bright yellow, and then you've got kind of a light gray color and a lighter green versus this like army green. So it's really easy to distinguish between those. And I mean, just like inclusivity is so important, and it's overlooked so often. So when you see people design with inclusivity in mind, it's something that I feel like we need to point out, and it's something that we appreciate. It impacts us not at all while we're playing this, but it would impact that playing experience with people that we care about. And so when you see those elements, I think it's always important to point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, again, this kind of goes back to the unintuitive rules piece. The graphic design on this, okay. But again, these symbols like the claw that gets you influence. What? I mean, okay, I get it. It's clear. I can tell that this is, a different symbol from the others, but why is it a claw? Why is movement 2 hammers? The reinforce action with the shield to add guys, I could sort of get there with that one.
Yeah.
The gnome one makes sense, but again, it's just, a little more thought on some of those to make it. There are so many rules that you have to keep up with that just little tweaks like that, like having, I don't know, a foot or something for movement.
Spoken like a graphic designer.
I can't help it.
Some of the font choices too, I feel like could be a little better. Like I understand, like if you look at these numbers, it's like a Celtic looking font, something like you would expect to see it on a rune or like in God of War somewhere there. But it can make it hard to distinguish some of the things, like the 8 in particular. When I see it, it makes my eyes squint a little bit trying to distinguish what it is. So I think some of the font choices could have been better. It could have been made a little bit easier to see.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. But, we had a good time with this game.
Absolutely.
I think personally, where I come down is that this is this is a game that I would recommend with some caveats. Right, I would say.
Oh yeah.
You have to have you have to have the right people for this.
It's not the one I would take to like happy hour game night.
Yeah. And all of us who are in this hobby, which are the people that you can play the heavier games with, denser games with.
Sure.
Right? And if you have those people, then this can be a very enjoyable time. Would I take this over some other heavy stuff? Perhaps not. It just depends. I do think it is entertaining enough with the right crowd. And it's also not, a hugely expensive game either.
No. And once you get the hang of it, it moves really fast. So on the box it says 30 minutes per player. I believe that. So to be able to play a heavier game like this in an hour for 2 people is really kind of rad, because a lot of times games that are as heavy as this one take so long to play, and it's enjoyable, and like, you're following through and you get really invested in it. This one is a heavy game that you can pull out and play when you don't have a ton of time. But it does take a little bit of work to build up to being able to play that at 30 minutes per player. But once we got it, the second and the third waves on this went by very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. You do need a big table. This guy is a table hog, especially when you think about the fact that you were building out this action tableau in addition to the board and the gnome wheel and the champion cards and the vote tracker and it all, none of it by itself takes up a lot of space, but especially if you had 5 people set around playing this, all of these, they add up. They will eat up your table real quick.
So with the 2 of us playing, it was filling up a 3x3 square on our table, which is a really big piece of space. It took the entire width and about half of the length of the table.
Yeah.
For us to have enough room to build out our player boards and to have enough space comfortably. So yeah, man, with 5 people sitting around our table, I would be so interested to see how that looked.
But if you have more questions, you want to see it in action, find out what those details are that I'm talking about, you can watch our playthrough.
Yeah.
I did put some time codes on there, so if you want to skip the rules, you can. It takes probably the first half hour at least for me to explain everything.
That's usually how it goes.
But it's all there if you want to see those details and see the game in action and how it plays. Go take a look at that.
Yeah.
If you want more reviews like this, please subscribe to our channel here. Visit our website.
Our website is elevation.games.
Sign up for our newsletter and stay tuned for more stuff like this from us, as well as some of the games that we're working on. Find out some more about those.
Right.
Otherwise, we will have some more reviews, some more playthroughs, and some more stuff coming at you soon.
See you later.
Dang.